Right this very second, in kitchens all around the world, there's a heist being planned. And the target? It's your food. Yeah, I'm serious. When your milk goes sour or that bread gets a little fuzzy, it's not just, simple decay. Oh no. It is a full-blown, meticulously planned microbial takeover. So today, we're going to go undercover and expose their entire operation.
I mean, we've all been there, right? You're digging around in the back of the fridge looking for last night's leftovers and you find, well, something a little fuzzy. Or maybe you crack open a carton of juice and get hit with a smell that is definitely not fruit. So what is actually going on there? It might seem like it's just a slow, unavoidable process, but trust me, it is anything but random.
That's exactly it. What's happening to your food is an active biological takeover. Think of it like this. A highly organized crew of microscopic culprits are casing the joint, your food, and they're looking for any weakness in its security. They've got a plan to break in, steal all the valuables, and leave behind a total mess. We're talking off flavors, terrible smells, the whole 9 yards. And today, we are going to crack open their playbook and show you everything.
Okay, so every good heist needs a crew, right? Well, the food spoilage world has some of the best operatives in the business. These guys are everywhere, they're super diverse, and they can adapt to almost anything. So let's meet the masterminds behind the whole operation.
So, our crew is basically made up of 3 main groups. You've got your bacteria, your molds, and your yeasts. These are the big 3 in food microbiology. And each one has its own specialty, its own favorite targets, its own way of doing things. Bacteria? They're the fast-acting specialists. They cause that really rapid, dramatic spoilage. Molds? Well, they're the fuzzy infiltrators you can actually see, masters of taking over surfaces. And then you have yeasts. They're the fermenters, turning sugars into totally different things.
But here's where it gets really interesting. This microbial crew, they kind of lead a double life. See, in the right situation, they're not villains at all. They're master chefs. Their controlled activity, which we call fermentation, gives us amazing stuff like yogurt, gari, and beer. That's when they're working for us. But when those exact same organisms show up uninvited, that's when they become the heist crew, causing all that nasty spoilage. So the big takeaway here is that context is everything.
Now, a professional heist crew doesn't just barge in guns blazing. No way. They scout the location, they assess the security, and they wait for the perfect moment. For our microbes, this is what we call casing the joint. They're checking out the food itself and the environment around it to see if the heist is even doable. And they're looking at 2 main types of factors.
Okay, first up we have what are called intrinsic factors. The easiest way to think about this is as the food's own built-in security system. These are the properties of the food itself, its chemistry, its physical makeup that can either welcome an attack or fight it off. And let me tell you, a food with a strong internal security system can be a really, really tough nut to crack.
So what exactly is on this microbial heist checklist when they're sizing up the target? Well, they're looking at 4 key things. First, the pH level. Basically, how acidic is the food? Second, the nutrient content. What kind of loot is inside. Third, moisture. And more specifically, something called water activity. And finally, the biological structures. Does this food have any kind of natural armor?
All right, let's dive into pH. This is a huge barrier for a lot of microbes. Most bacteria, especially the really nasty ones, are pretty picky. They love a low-acid environment, which means a pH higher than 4.6. Think about foods like meat, milk, most veggies. They're perfect targets for bacteria. But molds and yeasts, they're the tough guys. They can handle way more acidity. That's exactly why you see them on high-acid stuff like fruits, jams, or pickles, where bacteria just can't survive. It's like the acidity is a security fence, and only certain members of the crew are skilled enough to get over it.
Next on the checklist is something called water activity, or you'll see it written as AW. And this one is absolutely critical. It's not just about how much water is in a food, but how much of that water is free for the microbes to use. See, they need that free water for literally everything, moving nutrients around, getting rid of waste, all the chemical reactions that keep them alive. If the water is all tied up by stuff like salt or sugar, it's useless to them. So the bottom line is super simple: no free water, no growth. It's like trying to run a factory with a power shutoff.
And this just shows you how different members of the crew have different standards. Check this out. Bacteria, they're the most high maintenance. They need a really high water activity, at least 0.90 to even get started. That's why they go after fresh meat, milk, and veggies. Yeasts, they're a little tougher. They can get by with 0.85. But molds Molds are basically the camels of the microbial world. They can grow with a water activity as low as 0.80, and that explains exactly why you see mold growing on drier things like bread or hard cheese, places where bacteria and yeast just can't make it work.
Okay, so the crew has checked out the food's built-in security. Now it's time to scope out the external security system. We call these the extrinsic factors. And these are all about the environment around the food. This is where we come in, because this is our line of defense. We're the ones who control the temperature, the humidity, and these things can absolutely make or break the entire heist.
In temperature is probably the biggest extrinsic factor we have in our arsenal. Microbes are total specialists when it comes to temperature. You've got your psychophiles. These are the cold-loving ones. They're the reason stuff can still go bad in your fridge. Then there are mesophiles. They love moderate, room temperature conditions, and this group includes most of the germs that can actually make us sick. And finally, you've got thermophiles. These are the heat lovers. They're a huge problem in things like canned foods that are kept warm. So you see, controlling the temperature is like being the security guard who controls the speed of the whole operation. You can slow it way down.
All right, the joint has been cased. Both the internal and external security systems have been checked, and the coast is clear. It's go time. The heist begins. This is the takeover. The moment the Microbial crew finally gets to work, breaking down the food and creating all those classic signs of spoilage.
So how does the takeover actually unfold? It's a pretty clear chain of events. First, the microbes start feasting on the food's nutrients, the carbs, proteins, fats. This is the fuel that allows their population to just explode. As they multiply, they release their enzymes. Think of these as their specialized tools that start breaking down the food structure. And all this activity creates byproducts. It's those byproducts that we notice as spoilage, the weird flavors, the bad smells, and sometimes even harmful toxins.
So let's break down their targets. First on the menu, carbohydrates. You know, the sugars and starches in food. For most of the microbial crew, this is the easiest energy to get to. They use special enzymes to start breaking these compounds down.
And the evidence they leave behind? It's pretty obvious. When they produce acids, that's what makes milk or juice taste sour. When they produce alcohol, well, that's why old fruit juice can get that fermented alcoholic taste. And then there's the gas. This is a dead giveaway. Ever see a can or a yogurt container that's bulging? That's gas, produced by microbes trapped inside, building up pressure. It's a giant warning sign that the takeover is in full swing.
Now, once they've had their fill of the easy-to-get carbohydrates, or if they're attacking something that's mostly protein, like meat or fish, the crew moves on to its next target, proteins. And the breakdown of proteins, oh man, this is what's responsible for some of the absolute worst signs of spoilage. We're talking about the really bad smells.
So they use another set of tools, enzymes called proteases, to chop up big proteins into smaller amino acids. But they don't stop there. They break down those amino acids even further. For example, when they digest an amino acid called cysteine, they produce hydrogen sulfide, and that is the unmistakable, powerful smell of rotten eggs. When they break down another one, tryptophan, you get compounds like indole and skatole, which, well, they have a really foul, fecal odor. This isn't just random rot. It's a specific chemical signature. It's the crew leaving behind their calling card, loud and clear.
Okay, so we've met the crew, we know their methods, we've seen their entire plan of attack. And you know what? That puts us in a really powerful position. Because when you know the plan, you can stop it. So this last part is all about boosting our own security to make sure this microbial heist never ever succeeds in our kitchens.
So how do we stop the heist? It all comes down to controlling the conditions. Number 1, basic hygiene. Wash your hands, clean your surfaces. Don't invite the crew in. Number 2, control the temperature. Get those leftovers in the fridge fast to slow everything down. 3, protect the food's natural armor. Don't bruise your fruits and veggies because that's like leaving a door unlocked. 4, separate raw and cooked foods to prevent cross-contamination. And finally, number 5, cover your food. Protect it from any airborne stragglers. Every single one of these steps is a direct counterattack against their strategy.
But here's a fascinating little twist to all this. Even though we can identify all the chemical signs of spoilage, the exact moment a food is considered spoiled isn't always so black and white. It can actually be pretty subjective. I mean, what one person calls spoiled, another might call aged cheese or kimchi, right? Our culture, our personal tastes, they all play a huge part in where we decide to draw that line.
And that really brings us to the big takeaway. Food spoilage isn't just some passive, sad decay. It's an active, planned microbial heist. But now that you understand the crew, what they need, and how they operate, you're not just a victim anymore. Nope, you are now the head of security for your own kitchen.
You have the power and the knowledge to protect your food, cut down on waste, and keep everything safe.
So I'll leave you with this one question. Now that you know their entire playbook, you know how they case the joint, what they're looking for, and exactly how they pull off the takeover, how are you going to protect your food? The power is officially in your hands. Thanks for joining us.